Chapter 11. Toulouse, 8th of March, present day. Still reeling and not relishing our next course of action in the slightest. It is a terse parting, as Isaac climbs into his Citroën and, after persuasive coaxing involving everything short of beating it with a fallen tree branch to get it moving, pulls away. I dump my jacket in Aisha's Alpine, then shut the door as I stand beside it. The cooler March morning that greeted me as I staggered from the morgue like a Friday night drunk tank candidate is giving way, the breaching sunlight growing in confidence. Warmth radiating from the buildings and pavement only augments the effect. We're a good distance out from the centre of the city, from where we need to get to. There are metro stations little more than a stone's throw away, but I'm not looking to get there quickly. Hell, I don't want to get there at all. But when I see Frank, I want to be ready. And if that's going to be the case, I need to move. Movement is essential. And not just in the, if you don't, your joints will rust up and you probably won't be able to get out of bed anymore, especially if you eat that third helping of creme brulee sense. It ties us to our surroundings, anchors us in the here and now. We become more part of our world when we are walking through it, experiencing it directly. There's magic in that. We enter the measured twirl of the unconscious dance of the street and its occupant. Our confidence makes partners out of the strangers we encounter. Our sidesteps are do-si-do. We pass over a train track and wend from the smaller roads up into the Avenue Etienne Billier, just east of Pat d'Oie. From there, we cross Saint Cyprien, the market bustling, the bars serving coffees to some, spirits to others, and head for the Pont Neuf to cross into the city proper, looking for Frank. Beings of power, at least those who don't get themselves killed by pitchfork-wielding locals or greedy rivals, live for considerable spans of time. We solidify our holdings by claiming territory. Cities become the purview of one dominant individual, with other magical entities only allowed in by their gracious permission. Usually. There are exceptions to the rule. Typically, my situation is one of those exceptions. I'll never forget when Frank and I first met. Returning to Toulouse in the 19th century after a long and painful time away, I was in a pitiable state. Wounded in spirit and desperate for familiarity and stability. Instead, I felt Frank's magics like an oil slick polluting the dark waters of my home, pulling my sword and firing it with my talent. A blazing green fire dancing its edges, I charged nihilistically towards the source, not even caring normal people might see me, ready to do battle with this invader polluting my home. But the strange creature didn't come looking for a showdown. Instead, he waved a flag of parley as I approached, a bedsheet stained with dark bodily fluids he'd stashed in a crumbling hole in a wall by the riverbank. He wheedled and parleyed, insisting we could coexist. His offer was simple. If I allowed him to stay, he would become my eyes and ears, detecting powers when they entered the city and hearing the unguarded discussions of potential threats, alerting me to risks to my home. All he wanted in exchange was for me to leave him in peace to gather his lovely lads and lasses, as he called them. He wasn't evil, he insisted. Yes, he fed on the misery of humans, but his was a trade. Always a trade. No one would die. In fact, he'd be doing them all a favour, and was he such a monster if he dulled their pain even a little and kept them alive? They'd not get such a kind offer from any of the other options. The gutter, the workhouse, the forced labour of prison, the hangman's noose. Only the truly desperate get drawn to Frank. When they are, if they swear fealty, he takes care of them, sort of. He doesn't make their lives easy, doesn't take away their suffering. Doing that would undo the very reason he wanted them in the first place. When the cold bites like piranha teeth, it will still feel like the flesh is stripping from their bones. When their heroin is cut with too much rat poison or, more ironically, is too pure compared to their usual supply, it'll still feel like a raging fire consuming their veins, boiling them from the inside out. But they won't die from hypothermia or overdosing. They'll always scrounge up enough food to survive, though it might differ from the things they once were prepared to put into their belly. They'll learn to live with that constant companion of a hollow emptiness that is kept just a notch above terminal. And Frank? Frank feeds off that misery. It's sustenance for him. That's the trade. He's no friend to his people, but he is clear, categorically clear before they enter his services. They meet him in their dreams, their feet leading them to kneel at the water's edge. He'll tell them the implacable truths of what he offers, and not one thing more. Those who hold on to hope are allowed to go, forgetting him in the mist of morning. But they are few and far between. I don't like him or trust him. But we struck a deal, and I'll not be the one to break it, not without good justification. So ours is an uneasy truce, leaving us sharing the city sprawl. Shared meaning we don't try to kill each other. Although honestly, it's still my first inclination every time I see him, or think of him, or remember he exists. Be in awe of my willpower and self-restraint. Nonetheless, we're both still standing, as is Toulouse. So that is a win, all things considered. Who'd emerge victorious if we tried to kill each other is far from certain, so I've accepted uneasy cohabitation as the best option. When we pass onto the downslope towards Esquirol and Toulouse proper, I start looking out more actively for Frank's people. Walking the streets of Toulouse like this, attuning to the city's pitch and key, then marking it as mine like the filthy old dog I am, is a necessity to protect it and its people, a sigil marked in long shank strides. It also brings me into sync with the undercurrent of the city, both light and dark. I'll be able to find Frank by using myself as a dowsing rod. Of course, that means I need to sink into it, submerge myself into that syncopated heartbeat of the city just under the surface, made of footfalls and market cries, of pigeon chitters and the swelling murmurs of individuals subsumed in the crowd. I'm looking, but I'm also being, joining with the city, so it draws my attention into the loop of Toulouse. In theory, it makes me vulnerable. While my attention is all there, very little of it is here, where I am, this physical body walking the streets. My attention's too diffuse, my state almost trance-like. Of course, I'm not in the least bit concerned. Anyone attacking me will commit suicide by Aisha. Messy way to go. A couple of potential candidates stand on the southern corner of the bridge, half pints in plastic cups from Le Filachard bar. They could well be his. She's young, only just out of her teens if she is even that old. One side of her head is shaved. Lime green filaments of her mohawk she didn't take time to style drape over the stubble. Parts are still rigid from a previous fix-up with soap. Other parts lounge across her head. Screamo and metal band fabric patches dot her leather jacket. I'm willing to bet she's not listened to most of them. Her style mixes punk and emo, holes torn in stockings under frayed jean shorts, her stomping boots, Doc Martin knockoffs. Still, the closer I get, the more I realise she isn't Frank's. Not yet, anyway. There is too much artfulness in the combination, too much precision and attention in the looping black lines of mascara tracing out from her eyes, the vestiges of hair stiffener, more likely shop-bought product than coarse soap. She's not desperate. Not yet. She's only recently stepped outside of the world most exist in, outside warm houses and second chances. Given time, odds are good she'll go to him. Once the itching need kicks in, once the doss houses give way to cold alleyways, then she might go seeking his blessing. For now, she remains an outsider. Her companion looks a more likely bet. By my reckoning, he appears older, perhaps as much as a decade, but the wear and tear effect of life on the streets means it could be half of that. There's no posturing to him. Brown nicotine stains paint his lopsided grin and trace the swirls of his fingertips as he pulls on a prison-thin roll-up. His lived-in face matches an outfit that has likely come from the thrift shops off Capitol, selling clothes by the kilo. Life has torn through the knees of his jeans, not the fashion-seeking scissors of a trend's demands. The dirt marks on his Dead Kennedy's t-shirt are a map, calling cards of squats he's visited for shelter, or a safe space to get high. His hair is cropped short, lank brown strands hacked off by scissors wielded without sufficient skill or attention. The couple top up their goblets from a can pulled from the faded khaki army bag at his feet. The longer I look, the surer I am that he is Frank's. To find Frank, I need to talk to him through one of his people. He doesn't trust me any more than I trust him. Wise monster. But the girl isn't claimed by him. Not yet. Perhaps her rebellious phase will pass. She can still choose another life path. If I expose her to Frank, I'll be making that choice for her. There'll be no turning back. There's plenty of Frank's people in the city. No need to take the risk. I dismissed them and continued to let my feet lead me down towards Esquirol. Our dance partners increase in number as the bustle builds by the cross point of the metro station. Southward lies Calm, a collection of street food locales pitching themselves shamelessly as clientele flows past towards the bars and restaurants surrounding the parking lot. To the north, the central ditch of the cobbles is an arrow pointing upwards towards the capital. A mixture of known brands, independent boutiques and shop-based hustlers adorn both flanks and the adjacent side roads. As the shop windows enlarge, displaying haute couture offerings, I turn north, towards the Place Saint-Georges. The middle-class kids, protected by money's influence, swing off the wooden ribcage of the dragon-shaped playground, without a care in the world. Approaching the roundabout surrounding the Jardin Pierre Goudouli, I see another of Frank's chosen. A man, only just more than a boy, sits huddled in a corner, crushing his hunched-up body back into the elegant brickwork he's leaning on. He's almost naked, his dirty grey boxers the only thing providing him any decency. His body vibrates as he shivers, his eyes on a discarded coffee cup sitting at his feet. He stares at it, zoned out, acknowledging no one and nothing except his own misery. I approach the beggar and drop €1 into the cup. As I do, I push a small tendril of talent into him, letting it tap against the magic that binds him to Frank like knocking on the door. When the boy's head shoots up, his eyes are white eggshells in an utterly vacant face. "Back again, my little lordling. 'Tis an honouring so soon and suddenly upon my oath." The voice has the cold, cracked pitch of the youth in front of me, but the cadence, the structuring, all Frank's. One detail of the deal he strikes with his people: they serve him. Always. If he needs to see from their eyes, to speak from their mouth, there's no choice for them in the matter. I don't even try to keep the distaste out of my voice. Frank, I've neither time nor patience for pleasantries. We need to speak in person, now. I don't feel the need to sugar my words. Dealing with Frank is a necessary evil, not a pleasure. It brings me down to earth, hard, and I have neither the energy nor the inclination to engage in banter. Ah, my boyo, then you'll be needing to come to me, will it not now be? The little fishy walkers get themselves all edged up if I climb out by their busy spaces. Not good for the peace, my little lord, is it? Not good for our dealeries and agreementings all finery signed and filigreed. The smile that splits the boy's face looks neither genuine nor entirely human. I suppress a shudder. Where can I find you then, Frank? Wend your feet pattering up towards the Twinny Bridge, clone-stepping with your delectable shade sword next to ye. Clamber the handhelds down to my riverside promenaderings, and under the eaves amidst the droppings, I'll be with you in a jiffy shimmy, good manling. The head shakes, an unnaturally rapid side-to-side movement, covering multiple back and forths inside a single second, blurring the features. Then the young street kid is back, dropping his gaze downwards to fixate once more on his feet as the shivering starts up again. Dropping a €10 note into his cup before leaving, there's pity and anger mixing up inside. I saw the track marks on his inner arm. I know where that money will go. Some people justify not giving money to street folk by stating how they'll only spend it on drugs or booze. That displays only their own poorly absent humanity rather than that of the likes of the poor sod in front of me. I spent a year inside an opium den at the turn of the 18th century when misery had made a mess of me again, lost in the loving embrace of the poppy until the den owner slit my wretched throat without a thought or care. Dirty deeds, done dirt cheap. Being murdered saved me. I skipped the misery of physical addiction. Even so, the mental suffering was intense and only stressed the grief responsible for me being there in the first place. Still, I could escape to a new body, to money stowed and property accrued, to rebuild myself and reclaim my place. For most people, once the streets take you, whether you are Franks or not, they sever you from society's connections. You become isolated, hopeless, and helpless. I can understand the need to escape, to blank out that destitute monotony of suffering defining your every waking moment. I don't think it requires much empathy, nor the need to endure the excesses of addiction, to sympathise with those in that situation and realise our choices might not look very different in similar circumstances. Aisha looks at me. Her eyes are ablaze over the sight of the kid being ridden like a lower by Frank. She's made her opinions about his presence in Toulouse very clear. I think she probably saw elements of her own suffering in that of the poor wretch too. I only really know the bare bones of her story. But there are some things she cannot stand. The exploitation of the vulnerable, as she sees it, is not to be tolerated. It was a long time after our return to Toulouse from La Rochelle before I told her about Frank. We then had many long, heated discussions, followed by solemn promises extracted before I allowed her to come with me to meet him. I've always held on to the bigger picture of the damage a clash between us would cause and the lives of those unaware of our world, undeserving of being caught in our battles. Aisha is more of the, if the shoe fits, use it to kick him in the nuts school of thinking. She maintains that wrong is wrong. And beyond any doubt, beyond any possible question, Frank is most definitely wrong.